Hello, fine citizens of the internet. This is SC2 Noob School. I'm Trebus, and today we're going to have a unit spotlight for what has become one of my favorite units to play around with right now, the Infestor. A really awesome Zerg spellcaster. Very versatile, has a lot of really interesting abilities. I definitely classify it as an offensive spellcaster. That, you know, there's some spellcasters that are kind of a support role for your army, like a sentry or something that's not really doing direct damage. But the Infestor is built to kill. He's got 3 abilities. First, he's got the Infested TERRAN, which just spawns this kind of marine-like unit that's really slow moving, but does a decent amount of damage. Does about 8 damage. He's also got the Fungal Growth ability, which you can't use on friendly targets, but a fungal growth just basically does damage and stops units from moving. And his last ability is Neural Parasite, which you have to research from the infestation pit right here. And that allows you to essentially mind control an enemy unit. And the last thing I want to talk about before I go into specifics of each of these spells is Burrow, and how Burrow is a little different for the Infestor, because the Infestor, even without an upgrade, is able to move underground while he's burrowed. So that gives some new interesting uses for the Infestor and makes Burrow very, very worthwhile to get if you're getting Infestors. Anyway, I'm going to basically just be covering each of the spells and some of the various uses you can use for them. So let's go ahead and jump into the Infested TERRAN. Alright, so the Infestor's first ability is the Infested TERRAN, and there's a couple ways you can use these. For the most part, or I guess the first thing you can use them for is just general army support. You know, if you've got a group of Infestors and you've got a lot of energy on all of them, you see Infestors can have 200 energy, and Infested TERRAN costs 25, so you can get a total of 8 Infested TERRAN from each Infestor. So if you've got a nice clump of Infestors, you can just spam a whole bunch of Infested TERRAN all over the place, and that's actually a pretty powerful support for your army. You can think of an Infested TERRAN as just like a slightly better Marine, basically. They do 8 damage, range 5, have 50 health. They move really slow, so pretty much wherever you cast them, that's where you're wanting them to attack. You don't want to try to cast them and then walk them somewhere else. Also, they last, actually I'm not sure how long they last. Not too long. You can time it out yourself. They're actually pretty short-lived. So it can just be kind of a general army support unit. The other thing that's useful to know about Infested TERRAN is that it's actually the only ability that's castable while underground. So while your Infestor is burrowed, you can just spam out a whole bunch of Infested TERRAN out of nowhere, and your enemy will be extremely confused. Wow, where'd all those crazy looking TERRAN come from? Well, they have like, I guess they have like a blade and a gun? That's pretty cool. Either way, and I guess the last little utility I want to talk about with Infested TERRAN is their ability to harass a mineral line. If you can get a couple Infestors to a mineral line, you can keep them burrowed. They're essentially cloaked while they're burrowed. Get them straight into a mineral line and just spam a whole bunch of Infested TERRAN everywhere. That can pretty much rip apart a mineral line pretty quickly. You can see these SCVs are taking quite a beating, and you can actually kill a lot of SCVs before most people are even able to react. And their damage really isn't half bad. I mean, they're probably going to be able to take out this command center before they're actually dead. And that was just the energy from 2 Infestors. So, pretty nice little unit. They can also be nice for if you, say, at your own mineral line or something, if you need some emergency anti-air, they can be a nice choice in addition to a queen. So that's the Infested TERRAN. Not the most interesting ability, because the most interesting ability is Fungal Growth, which we're going to talk about next. Okay, now I feel comfortable saying Fungal Growth is the best Infestor ability. It's actually so versatile. It's totally ridiculous. Basically what it does is it creates this little ring right here. Anything within that area of effect takes 36 damage over 8 seconds, as well as can't move. And it can hit air units as well. So it's its main utility is shutting down really mobile units. You know, a lot of units, their straight up damage or their ability to fight in a head-on battle may not be the best, but they're extremely mobile, which makes them very potent on the battlefield. And the fungal growth just shuts those types of units down completely. And there's actually so many uses for fungal growth, I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them, but I am going to divide it up per matchup. So we're going to talk about fungal growth versus Protoss, then versus Terran, then versus Zerg, because there's just actually so many uses for fungal growth. Basically, I'll just show you how it works real quick. Just grabbing some extremely mobile units, you can just quickly fungal growth, bam, and all those units are stuck in their track. Throw a couple infested Terran there if we want. But yeah, the main utility is keeping them still. The damage isn't incredibly good. It's reasonably good, but not, you know, it's not, I guess, not the main key to it. And like you can see, like I was talking about, one of these extremely mobile units, like the Phoenix, can shut down those completely. Phoenix aren't going anywhere. Also, if you don't have the, I can't remember what that's called. I think it's called flyer indicator or something like that. It's in the options somewhere, so you can see exactly where on the ground the flying units are. That can help you for positioning your fungal growths, because you actually have to position them below the units where they actually are on the ground. If you try to put them right here above the actual images of the air units, it won't actually hit them. So it's nice to have like flyer tips or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about some of the specific uses versus Protoss. Alright, so one of the most useful things you can use fungal growth for against Protoss is to shut down the units that get these basically mobility upgrades from the Twilight Council. You can get Blink and Charge from Twilight Council. And really those are just, you know, it doesn't increase the damage of anything, it just makes them more mobile, which makes them a lot more dangerous. So Zealots with Charge, you can actually shut those down so well if they're charging in. Even, I guess maybe you can do it mid-charge, I don't know, let me see here. I'm going to try to fungal, and yeah, you can see the charge was already going off, and you can still shut them down before the charge even happens, and not let them even get in range of your units. So that actually shuts down Zealots completely. The other nice utility is Blink Stalkers can be very strong, because you can do this whole, you know, micro away the most damaged Stalker and just increase the efficiency of your army a lot. So in a straight up battle, you can get some fungals down, blah blah blah, fungal. And now actually these units cannot blink if they're fungal growth. So that limits their abilities quite a bit. So I'd say that's definitely two of the most useful things to do against Protoss. Also, of course, shutting down Phoenix Harass is very strong. If you can get a fungal growth off, whoop, and then possibly get some Hydras in there, or if you've got Queens or whatever, you can also fungal and then throw up some infested Terran, and the infested Terran will actually come out before the fungal growth wears off. And so that can be very useful against Phoenixes as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into Infestors versus Terran. Alright, now Zerg versus Terran I think is where Infestors really can shine, mostly because of how useful they are against Marines. Marines are very susceptible to fungal growth because of several things. First of all, they have very low HP. They only start off with 45. With Combat Shield they get 55, but still low HP, and they're very physically just small units, so they pack into tight spaces, so that just naturally makes them more vulnerable to area of effect spells. Also, Stim is incredibly good. If Terran players are always using Stim because it just increases the damage so much, but it can actually be a really big liability if there's Infestors on the field and the Marines don't have Combat Shield but they do have Stim. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let me take like half of these Marines. A normal fungal growth will do exactly 36 damage, so Marines have 45 health, and this fungal growth will not kill these Marines. Let's watch the damage real quick. Getting lower, getting down to 9 health. Okay, so they are still alive. They can go back and be healed by a medevac or something like that. they're not dead. Now if they, once again, not having combat shield, if they use a stim and then you can get a fungal growth off on them, it will actually kill the Marines outright. Get out of here, Banshee. Splat goes the Marines. So that's actually really dangerous. That's something for you Terran players to know as well. Is if you see Infestors out there and you do not have combat shield, first of all, get combat shield, but don't stim in that battle because your Marines will be dead. So that's possibly the most commonly used way to use fungal growth against Terran is against Marines. Now there's some other very useful ways to use it as well. Fungal growth is very good at stopping drops. Like I was saying, it can stop air units. So let's say you just see these 2 medevacs floating across the battlefield here. They're coming towards your mineral line. You can just, hold on, let me clump them up. I gotta manufacture this scenario as much as possible. Get a fungal growth off, throw down some infested Terran, and the infested Terran can actually take out one or maybe both of these medevacs. Oop, not quite getting them, destroying them outright, but still doing a lot of damage, and it will certainly repel any kind of drop that's coming in. Now when you consider you also may have a queen in there, if you've got some hydralisks in there as well, that's going to do a lot of damage as well. So it's very, very good against stopping drops. The last utility is, and I didn't talk about this when I first introduced it, but I should have, is fungal growth actually reveals cloaked units. So as you can see here, these hydras are not attacking these banshees because they cannot see them. But with one fungal growth, there you go. Banshees are revealed and the hydralisk can clean them up. So fungal growth, very, very effective versus Terran for all of those reasons. Now let's last go to Zerg versus Zerg. Oh, I forgot to mention, actually one more example of a useful thing fungal growth can do in terms of mobility. If you've got hydralisks and they have the grooved spine upgrade, which increases hydralisk range from 5 to 6, you can see hydralisks now have 6 range and Marines have 5 range. So if you can get a fungal growth off on Marines, hold on, let's clump them up, get our fungal growth, and then send in your hydras. The Marines actually cannot hit the hydras. The hydras can just sit at that range buffer and just totally eat through the Marines. And that can happen, you know, there's more examples of this than just with hydras and Marines, but I wanted to point that out as well, that if your unit has some kind of range advantage against the unit that's fungal growthed, then actually it's just free damage. They can just sit there and wail on them. Okay, so let's get into Zerg versus Zerg fungal growth. Alright, so last we got fungal growth in Zerg versus Zerg. Fungal growth can also be very good in Zerg versus Zerg versus a couple different units. We've got the Mutalisk, which is another one of those mobile kind of harassment style units. You know, not the best in straight up combat, but is very effective because of its mobility. You can use fungal growth, first of all, just to stop them in their tracks. And then as well, hydralisks have a range of 5 or 6, and mutas have a range of 3. So again, it's one of those scenarios where your unit can actually attack the fungal growth unit without taking any damage. So if you can get, let me get a nice fungal growth off here for splat, getting a lot of those mutas, they're totally stopping in their tracks, and these hydras can come on and just wail on them for several seconds without them being able to fly away. Also, if you want to, you can just, hold on, you can just kind of stack the fungal growths over and over. Get out of here. And just, I think it takes 4 fungal growths to actually kill them. So if you've got a couple infestors, you can just keep stacking them over and over again, and eventually it will kill the Mutalisk. Now note that you cannot, like if you cast it twice in a row right on the Muta, it's not going to do its full damage. It takes the full 8 seconds to do all of its damage. If you cast it again, it kind of restarts that timer and it gets 8 more seconds of time. So the other useful unit that fungal growth can be good against is the Baneling. Now why not the Zergling? The Zergling has 35 health, so really a fungal growth should one-shot a Zergling, right? You would think so. However, just because of the regenerative qualities of the Zergling, they actually are able to regenerate 1 health I believe. Yeah, there, they get stuck at 1 health actually before they die. So it will not one-shot Zerglings, however, Banelings coming in here can one-shot Banelings. Banelings have 30 health, so Banelings, say goodbye. Exploding prematurely, it's never a good thing. Goodbye, Banelings. So that is another very useful scenario. And the last scenario in Zerg vs. Zerg, which is my favorite and has kind of was turned on to me because of a guy named Stephen Bonnell who streams a lot on Team Liquid, is the fungal field, which is so cool. It was really what, I don't want Zerglings, get out of here Zerglings. It's what kind of inspired me to start using the Infestor more in as many ways as I could, because they're just so cool. Basically, the way that he likes to use them in Zerg vs. Zerg is whenever your opponent's coming in with a large number of roaches, you can get a fungal growth off on the roaches coming up the ramp, and then your roaches at the top of the ramp can get this really, really big concave on them, and your roaches will just be like, you know, many times more effective than their roaches. So let's back these roaches up a little bit. I'm going to attack them straight up into the top of the ramp, get my Infestor ready. Gonna fungal them kind of as soon as they're getting to the top, and then my roaches are able to get this huge concave on his roaches, and you can just keep fungling over and over again, and those roaches are totally stuck. So again, another very useful ability, the fungal field. I definitely recommend going to check out Stephen Bonnell's stream if you are apt to do that kind of thing. It's actually really hilarious. I enjoy it quite a bit. So that is fungal growth in all 3 of the matchups. There's just actually so many ways to use fungal growth effectively. I can't even talk about all of them, but just suffice it to say it's a really good ability that you should be using a lot if you're choosing to use Infestors. So last we're going to talk about Neural Parasite. Let's do it. Alright, so the last Infestor ability, and the one I'm going to talk about the least actually because I honestly don't think it's that useful, is Neural Parasite. This basically allows you to control an enemy unit for 15 seconds. The Infestor basically shoots out this little mind spore, this little grabber thing, I don't know what it is, and you can use that unit for 15 seconds. Any abilities that unit has, it is essentially yours. Even if it's like, you know, an SCV, you can build a command center, and that command center will be yours. But it only lasts 15 seconds, and while the Infestor is doing this, it can't do anything else. So really it's something that you want to use on those big, powerful units like a Colossus or a Siege Tank, a Thor, something like that. But really, honestly, I don't feel like it's that great of an ability. But I'll go ahead and show it. You see, I control this Colossus now, and actually, while he's still in range, he will automatically fire upon any enemy units. If he walks out of range, I lose the ability, and after 15 seconds it'll go away anyway. It's actually a really hard ability to use because the range is not too far. So usually by the time you can get a Neural Parasite off, your Infestor is so close to the battle that he's going to die anyway. So not all that useful. Now the one thing that I will show you that is actually so ridiculously, stupidly cool is called the Baneling Toilet. Now maybe you've seen the Archon Toilet where you just put a ton of Archons into a mothership's vortex. This is the Baneling Toilet. This is the Zerg version of that. Basically, what you do is you fungal growth a mothership, you use the vortex on the Protoss's troops, and then you sprinkle a bunch of Banelings in there. It's a pretty easy recipe for disaster. So I'm just going to make a bunch of Zerglings. We're going to make all these Zerglings into Banelings. And by the way, this isn't practical at all. I just think it's so cool that how could I not show this? So here we go. We got this big army right here. I'm gonna actually, here we go, get my Banelings ready, and I'm gonna fungal growth this mothership, or not fungal growth. I'm gonna Neural Parasite. So Neural Parasiting the mothership, vortexing. Whoops, I just totally failed on that. Okay, vortexing all of the Protoss units, and then sprinkle in some Banelings. And we are going to say goodbye to all of those Protoss units. The Banelings basically get perfect splash damage against all of the units inside the vortex. That, my friends, is the Baneling toilet. Super, just ridiculously, stupidly awesome. If you can pull that off in a game, send me the replay because I will instantly cast that game. Seriously, has to be legitimate though. You can't be like, hey man, let me Baneling toilet you. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this unit spotlight. Go use an Infestor. They're really fun to use. Highly recommended. As always, please give me a thumbs up, favorite my videos, and subscribe, all that jazz. Also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/TrebisSC2. I'd love to get more followers. And thanks again for watching. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. And I'll see you guys next time. GG.